For years, Terrence Howard has claimed that Hollywood works by rules most people never see. In his view, success is not always about talent. Sometimes it is about knowing when to stay silent, who to support, and when to walk away. After his own public battles with the industry following his exit from Iron Man, Howard has repeatedly argued that powerful people are often protected until the cost of defending them becomes too high. Now he has placed Ellen DeGeneres at the center of that conversation. And when you look back at her incredible rise and shocking downfall, his point becomes much harder to ignore. But how did someone once known as America's kindest celebrity become the face of one of television's biggest scandals? The answer is far more complicated than it first appears. For almost 20 years, Ellen DeGeneres seemed impossible to challenge. She built one of the strongest public images in entertainment. Millions of viewers saw her as funny, generous, and endlessly positive. Her message was simple. Be kind. Those two words became more than a slogan. They became a brand. But every empire has a beginning, and Ellen's journey was anything but easy. So what made her untouchable in the first place? In 1997, Ellen made television history by publicly coming out as gay, both in real life and through her sitcom character. It was a bold decision during a time when few major stars were willing to take that risk. More than 40 million people watched the famous episode. It won awards, but it also came at a huge cost. Advertisers pulled away. Some stations refused to air the show. Boycotts followed, and within a year, her sitcom was cancelled. Overnight, one of television's brightest stars found herself struggling to find work again. Hollywood had turned its back on her. Or so it seemed. But then something unexpected changed everything. That turning point arrived in 2003 when Pixar released Finding Nemo. Ellen became the voice of Dory, the cheerful and forgetful blue fish who quickly stole the hearts of audiences around the world. The movie became a massive success, earning hundreds of millions of dollars and winning major awards. Suddenly, Ellen was back. Only months later, she launched The Ellen DeGeneres Show. It could not have come at a better time. Audiences wanted something light, funny, and uplifting. Ellen delivered exactly that. But this new success would soon grow into something much bigger than anyone expected. The show quickly became one of daytime television's biggest hits. Celebrity interviews, surprise gifts, emotional reunions, and playful jokes filled every episode. Families received new cars. Teachers were rewarded for their hard work. Students had their debts paid. Charities received national attention. Every episode reinforced the same message. Be kind. Viewers embraced it. Advertisers loved it. Awards kept coming. Even President Barack Obama presented Ellen with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, praising both her career and her courage. It seemed like the perfect ending to a remarkable comeback story. But beneath that polished image, small warning signs were already beginning to appear. Almost nobody noticed them at the time. As Ellen's popularity grew, so did her influence. Appearing on her famous white couch became a dream for celebrities. Actors, musicians, athletes, politicians, and internet stars all wanted an invitation. A single interview could launch an unknown performer into national fame overnight. Young singer Grayson Chance became one of the best-known examples after Ellen helped introduce him to millions of viewers and even signed him to her own record label. Forbes regularly listed Ellen among the world's highest-paid entertainers. She earned tens of millions every year. Her audience stretched across television and social media. She was no longer just a comedian. She had become an entertainment empire. But what happens when an empire starts to crack? Years before the headlines exploded, a few people quietly described a very different side of the show. Former writers later spoke about an environment where pitching ideas could feel intimidating instead of creative. Some recalled that if Ellen disliked a joke, the room instantly became tense. Others described an inner circle that everyone wanted to stay inside because falling out of favor could leave someone isolated. At the time, those stories attracted little attention. They seemed like ordinary complaints from a stressful workplace. But when later events unfolded, people began looking back at those early accounts very differently. And then one interview changed how viewers remembered everything. In 2008, Mariah Carey appeared on Ellen's show while rumors spread that she was pregnant. Carey repeatedly avoided confirming the speculation. Ellen kept pressing the issue. Eventually she encouraged Mariah to raise a glass of champagne on camera to prove she was not expecting a baby. Mariah reluctantly played along without actually drinking. Only weeks later, she suffered a miscarriage. Years afterward, Carey admitted she had felt deeply uncomfortable during the interview because she had not been ready to discuss something so personal. Suddenly, what once looked like harmless television seemed much harder to watch. But that would not be the last interview people revisited. Taylor Swift appeared on Ellen's show many times. During several visits, Ellen joked about Swift's dating life, showing pictures of famous men and asking her to identify former boyfriends. At one point, Taylor pleaded, "Please stop." Many viewers laughed in the moment. Years later, critics saw something different. They argued that the jokes crossed the line from playful teasing into public embarrassment. Looking back, people wondered whether they had ignored obvious signs simply because Ellen's reputation was so strong. Then another unforgettable interview made viewers question even more. In 2019, actress Dakota Johnson sat across from Ellen while promoting a new film. Ellen jokingly claimed Dakota had failed to invite her to a birthday party. Dakota calmly smiled and replied, "Actually, that's not the truth." She reminded Ellen that she had been invited and that Ellen simply chose not to attend. The clip instantly went viral. Many people laughed at the awkward exchange, but later it became something more. Viewers began calling it one of the few moments when someone publicly challenged Ellen on her own stage. It was a tiny crack in a carefully controlled image. But once people started looking for cracks, they found more than they expected. Comedian Hassan Minhaj also left viewers talking after Ellen repeatedly mispronounced his surname despite his polite corrections. On its own, it was hardly a scandal. Yet critics later pointed to it as another example of someone appearing dismissive instead of respectful. Then came Grayson Chance, the young singer Ellen had once helped launch to stardom. In 2022, he claimed that behind the scenes, Ellen became controlling over parts of his career before eventually distancing herself as his success slowed. Each story seemed small by itself. Together, they created a picture that no longer matched the public image millions had believed for years. But even then, almost nobody with real influence spoke out. Why was that? Everything changed in 2020. A single social media post lit the spark. Comedian Kevin T. Porter challenged people online to share stories they had heard about Ellen, promising to donate money to charity for every response. Thousands of replies poured in within hours. Soon afterward, BuzzFeed News published interviews with current and former employees from the Ellen DeGeneres show. Their stories described a workplace filled with fear instead of kindness. Employees claimed speaking up could damage careers. Some said complaints about racism, bullying, or unfair treatment were ignored. Others described feeling anxious every day they came to work. Suddenly, rumors that had quietly circulated for years were backed by names, dates, and first-hand accounts. But the biggest shock was still ahead. Additional reports focused on allegations involving senior producers on the show. Claims included inappropriate behavior, hostile management, and misconduct. Those accused denied many of the allegations, yet the growing number of complaints placed enormous pressure on the show's producers. Warner Media launched an outside investigation, interviewing dozens of current and former employees. While the full results were never released publicly, the investigation led to major changes. Several top producers left the show. New workplace policies were introduced. The damage, however, had already been done. Could Ellen still save her reputation? When the show's new season began in September 2020, viewers expected the usual dancing and laughter. Instead, Ellen opened with a serious apology. Looking directly into the camera, she admitted that things had happened behind the scenes that never should have happened. As the face of the program, she accepted responsibility and promised to make changes. It was one of the most emotional moments of her career. Yet apologies alone could not erase years of growing criticism. Ratings dropped sharply. Millions of viewers stopped watching. Advertisers quietly moved away. Every public appearance became overshadowed by the same question. Did people still believe the woman who always told them to be kind? In 2021, Ellen announced that the 19th season would be the show's last. She insisted the decision had been planned and said she was ready for new creative challenges. But what fascinated many observers was not just the end of the show. It was the silence from Hollywood. For nearly 20 years, Ellen had helped launch careers, promote movies, and introduce celebrities to massive audiences. Yet when her reputation collapsed, only a small group publicly defended her. Kevin Hart, Katy Perry, Ashton Kutcher, Diane Keaton, and her wife, Portia de Rossi, stood by her. Many other famous names chose not to comment at all. That silence became one of the biggest talking points. And it echoed exactly what Terrence Howard had been saying for years. Howard argues that Hollywood protects powerful figures for as long as it benefits everyone involved. Once public opinion changes, those same alliances can disappear almost overnight. Having spent decades working inside the industry, he believes influence, loyalty, and unspoken rules often matter just as much as talent. Whether people agree with him or not, Ellen's story seems to fit that pattern. Publicly supporting someone accused of leading a toxic workplace suddenly became a career risk few were willing to take. So many people simply stayed quiet. But the story did not end there. As public opinion shifted, old interviews began spreading across social media again. Even Ellen's conversations with Sean "Diddy" Combs received fresh attention after his own legal troubles dominated headlines years later. Viewers searched those old clips for hidden clues, even though no evidence connected Ellen to his controversies. The renewed interest showed something important. Once a public image begins to fall apart, people often re-examine everything that came before. Moments once seen as harmless suddenly look completely different. Perhaps that is the biggest lesson in Terrence Howard's argument. He says these scandals are rarely about one person alone. They happen inside systems that reward silence, protect influence, and discourage people from speaking out until it is too late. That does not remove responsibility from leaders. Ellen herself admitted serious problems happened under her watch. But it also raises a bigger question. How many powerful public images are carefully maintained because so many people benefit from keeping them alive? Ellen DeGeneres spent years encouraging audiences to be kind. That message inspired millions. Yet her legacy became defined by allegations that seemed to contradict everything she represented. Whether that reflects the failures of one individual or deeper problems inside the entertainment industry remains a question every viewer must answer for themselves. One thing is certain. Hollywood's brightest stars often shine because countless people help keep the spotlight pointed in their direction. But when that light begins to fade, even the biggest names can suddenly find themselves standing alone.